the way.
Do you guys want to switch to here, and then when the ladies come in, they can just take it down?
Fine.
You're good? All right. Okay.
Yeah, just give me a second to go. We're going live here on YouTube. Full production.
You coming today or no? No, is he on vacation?
I'm really tired of going to that.
Oh, solo baby.
Well, if there's nothing controversial, just be here. I mean,
Yeah, but I can create the controversy.
you got what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I need to interpret anything or.
I was here for the BAR meeting last Thursday. I was second to last. I'm always worried. So I don't know. Is
And you don't want to sit there for 4 hours.
Sat back there for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And they deferred it.
Oh,
They didn't
really?
deny it, but they deferred it. I want you to study the skin of the building. So, the whole skin. Except very streets only construction.
Somebody's building, took the house down, they're building out.
And it looks just like everything else around it. Apparently they didn't like something about it.
Because I think a lot of those that vary, all the, and they're low too, a lot of those houses. There's some
Yeah,
real low
this is,
stuff over there.
It's a whole little development where they made it. It's in between the townhouses. 5 single family lots and 4 of them were built on this one. So we ready?
Yes. We are ready.
All right. Oh, just in time.
Great.
Okay, we're gonna get started then. This is the May 4th, 2022 meeting of the City of Charleston Board of Zoning Appeals Site Design. Present are Amanda Barton, Paula Murphy, Jeff Webb, Kelvin Eugene, myself, Joel Adrian. Present from planning staff, Eric Schultz. These proceedings are being recorded. We ask that those who speak identify themselves for the record. We will conduct this meeting in usual fashion. First, receive information from city staff about the application and their recommendation. If the recommendation is favorable and no one objects to the application, usually the Board of Zoning Appeals treats the matter as being uncontested and passes it as a matter of course. If, however, the city recommends against the application or there is opposition to the application, we treat the application as contested and hear from the applicant and anyone else in favor of the application. Next, we'll hear from anyone opposed, followed by a short rebuttal from the applicant. We then close the public hearing portion of the meeting for that particular application, and we open discussion to the Board of Zoning Appeals members only. We will then make a decision to approve with conditions, or deny the application. Board of Zoning Appeals Site Design has the authority to do 3 things. 1, hear appeals to decisions of the zoning administrator. 2, grant special exceptions to fact-finding function of the board. 3, grant variances to the zoning ordinance if the application meets the hardship test outlined in section 54.924 of the ordinance. Board may deliberate, make a final decision on a matter by a majority vote of members present at the hearing and qualified to vote, provided there's not less than a quorum that are present and qualified to vote. For a variance to be granted, the Board of Zoning Appeals must make the following findings. A, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. B, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. C, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And D, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good. And the character of the district should not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Ruthie Ravenel has also joined the meeting. And so we'll go on to our first item, which is item A1, review of the minutes. Heard applications from previously advertised BZA-SD agendas. Any discussion on the minutes or any questions?
Where did everyone get to read them? Because last time I made a motion to approve, but I was premature.
They were sent out, so I know I got them this morning.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve.
Excellent.
Okay, all in favor, say aye in favor.
I'm
In favor, anyone opposed? Nay in favor? Or nay against, sorry, or opposed, sorry, nay in favor, good lord.
We're
That's
still
24660, it's approved. We're gonna go on to the next item, is item B1. 4 Paddle Creek Avenue, it's the Cross Creek subdivision application number 220504B1. TMS number 42404000036. Request variance for section 54.327 to allow the removal of 1 grand tree in a zone SR1.
Good, thank you. Good evening. 4 Paddle Creek Avenue. This is the application submitted by Andrea Petraeus. And we're here to hear request to remove 1 grand tree. This is her answers to the hardship test. So it's in the city, located on a cul-de-sac at the end of Paddle Creek Avenue, zoned SR1. Surrounding zoning, it's basically a neighborhood of SR1 and some DR1F on Fleming. Aerial shot of the property. Note the curvature in the cul-de-sac and the position of the structure on a slight angle, pretty much midway on the shot from the cul-de-sac looking at the front. This is an earlier shot. They planted a live oak out front since Google has driven down the street. The southern magnolia is, as you can see, in the rear left behind the garage is that's in question. And then a very large oak, you can see the crown midway in the backyard. What they like to do is, from what my understanding is, they were considering maybe relocating, buying a new house, but after searching in the housing market, why not stay in a wonderful neighborhood and just add on a pretty substantial addition to the rear. So they would be removing the walk and the porch and putting on a pretty significant addition across the entire length of the house. It puts that addition in pretty close proximity to that southern magnolia, and we'll get into a little bit more about that magnolia. Took this snapshot to give you a little greater view of the proximity of the proposal. This is a letter from Natural Directions. Donnie Skinner looked at the tree. The primary leader splits into 2 codoms, V-shaped crotch. In the photos, there's again the crown of the tree. Heading up the left side of the house through the gate, clearly see the codominant structure. Southern magnolias tend to search for a lot of water and moisture at the surface, so there's pretty significant root mass at grade. See bulging occurring at that union, maybe evidence of interior water. And then, of course, this is the little sidewalk that you see and how the roots are already starting to break that up, heading toward the residence. So there would be pretty significant root mass loss with the addition of the foundation. Andrea did her homework. She approached her neighbors. We have, I think, 5 letters of support, all signed by folks. So with that said, staff is prepared to recommend approval. I feel that due to the nature of the root system, the codominance, having a house addition in close proximity to that tree, the shape of the lot and the position of the house, I think, does play into the extraordinary conditions. There is a large oak, I forgot to point that out on the site plan. You can see it here. It's a 26-inch red oak, about exactly midway. And then, of course, they have a nice cluster of trees
southern wedge of the property. Does not appear that it would be a detriment to the district with the letters of support and mitigation, and, retaining the other trees. And we just planted a wonderful lot out front to contribute to the streetscape. So with that, I'll go back to my conditions. Staff recommends approval with the condition that 28 caliber inches of native trees be planted on the site. That's going to be quite difficult with the tree, newly planted tree out front sites. Just that one tree be planted, and then they make a contribution to the city street tree program. So what we do is take 2.5 inches off of the 28, that's 25.5, divide that by 2.5, you get 10 trees times 295. So contribution would be the 1,950.
All right, thank you, Eric. Is the applicant present? If you would state your name for the record.
I'm Andrea Melisick. I live at 4 Paddle Creek Avenue, Charleston, 29412. As Eric said, we had been planning an addition to the house due to the rising housing costs. We may or may not do that now because of increasing costs, what the Fed did today. So, but in doing so, we had to look at that tree. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had an arborist look at it. We found that it could be a danger to our property and to surrounding properties. And that is the main reason, whether we do the addition or not. We feel that that tree needs to come down. As Eric said, we planted last July a live oak in the front yard. We also planted a crepe myrtle on the other side last August. So we understand what staff is recommending, and we are fine with planting the mitigation tree on the property, but we do feel that the $2,950 contribution is excessive. We're not developers asking to remove trees to build new houses. We are individual property owners who have lived at this property for 20-some years now, who are asking to remove a tree because it's a danger to our property and to the adjacent properties. If it falls, it could hit the northern house and the house to the rear of our property as well. Requiring a contribution of almost $3,000 feels like the city is penalizing homeowners like ourselves who are in the situation. If that contribution is applied, it will cost upwards of $6,000 for us to remove that tree. The tree is already causing damage to our property. The roots are growing into the sidewalk that's next to the foundation to the house. They're also growing into the foundation of the shed. It's only going to continue to cause damage if it's not removed. In addition to that damage caused by the roots, the primary leader splits with a V-shaped junction that collects water, and over time, decay will form in that union. The arborist letter states that the tree will likely become hazardous over time as the included bark progresses. The more the tree grows, the deeper the V-shaped junction gets, and ultimately the weaker that junction gets. This can cause splitting or cause the stem to break off junction. If that happens, it could fall on our home or either of the adjacent homes to the north or to the rear. Therefore, we're asking you to approve the removal of the tree with mitigation in the form of planting 1 2.5-inch caliber tree on the property and either reducing or eliminating the monetary contribution to the street tree program because the tree poses a danger to our property and to surrounding properties. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Anybody else present that wants to speak in favor of this application?
Bill Eubanks, 39 Dayton Avenue. I've never stood in front of BZA as a public person before. I've always been here representing a project. And with any project I've ever worked on, I've never felt sorry for that developer for having to do the mitigation that they had to do for the tree that they were asking, the trees that they were trying to get rid of. But here, I think this is a different situation. You've got a private citizen with their own home removing a tree that can be detrimental to their property. And I feel like the city's mitigation requirements in this situation are harsh and overbearing. And I would ask y'all to support Eric's approval for the removal, but I'd like for y'all to consider some discretion in the mitigation.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak in favor? Anybody present that's opposed? Close the application for the public. It's open to the board for discussion and questions.
Did Natural Directions have a grade rating in that letter?
It says C.
Let's see.
I would agree with that.
I just, it's a category 1 tree, so it's 100% of the DBH inches.
Whether it's an A, B, C, or D,
That's correct.
which is, I guess one thing I would ask, and I think that's a point well taken, because there is a difference between residential and commercial and the burden on the homeowner, because I know I just pruned my 2 live oak trees that cost me $6,000. And that's, that's a lot of money. It's a lot different than when somebody's doing a big subdivision. So could it possibly, and I guess we could talk about it, but just for starters, can maybe the recently planted trees, could they be counted towards their inches and canopy replacement, since they've already done that? I don't know what anybody else thinks.
I was actually thinking the exact same thing. Wondering, how many inches they've recently planted. And that could be. And it's difficult because we don't want to set a precedent of waiving fees because they're there for a reason, and they're in the ordinance for a reason. But we have a estimate of the inches that have been planted.
How large was that live oak planted up from?
26 inches.
25.8.
I'm not sure, I have to look at it, but it probably was on the order of 2.5. They were each about 10 feet in height when we had them planted last year.
So the crepe might actually have more inches added up than that.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate that. So I was a little more hardline initially, thinking it's our standard. And all Eric did was he said, you want to remove a tree? This is the process. I could go and follow someone else's lead on that. I do think that, timing's everything. Had they known that they were going to get hit with the potential $3,000 fee, they probably would have planted that live oak in July of last year. So I think that we'll just add it to his project. Let's take that. But I will say that, not that you'll come back again, but the only thing that concerned me was the note that was on the site plan that said site plan by surveyor, tree location by homeowner. Because that's important. We're looking at the location of this tree in proximity to where this addition would be, but how do we know, was it triangulated properly and is actually sitting where it really is, or is it 2 feet this way? And we're not saying, hey, what if you step that addition in, like we might tell other people, instead of extending it all the way to the far extent of the house, if it stops 5 feet short, do we now have that protection zone? And it's a C grade tree. So there's a lot of things that go against. But I do think that for me, looking at the picture, the biggest concern is the bulging in that trunk. And something is causing that. That's not how it was naturally going to grow. Something is making it do that. The arborist talks about that V-crotch unit, water getting in there. And so it's probably very logical that, yes, it is holding water and decaying from inside out.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, it's a magnolia, and even if they brought the addition back from it, you're still in the roots, and that's just not going to work very well. So
We could make them go get a tree survey for a couple $1,000. It's expensive to live here. It's expensive. I totally understand the homeowner's dilemma, and I think it's a responsible thing to take care of your property and we all have insurance. We all try to be good neighbors. I mean, I had a tree fall from my property onto my neighbor's house during one of the storms. And it just, it's terrible because that's their homeowner's insurance that they have to pay for. You can't even help them with that. And now you have it on the record that you're trying to take this tree out, and they can come after you now. So, I mean, I'm just, for my opinion, I'm in favor of counting their most recent plantings and your recommendation minus the fee. That's my opinion.
So is that something that force you to go out and measure and then deduct whatever's there off of what's required?
Go back to
Or-
the recommendation page.
Or do
if
we
you
just
would,
need to
so
go
that-
and say, hey, we're gonna give her credit for 10 caliber inches and she plants one on site and then the rest is.
See, I do think it's something possibly that, not that Eric doesn't have anything else to do. But there is kind of a difference between, a development or redevelopment for commercial and the homeowners, kind of depending on what the issue is. If they just want to take out trees because I'm gonna do a swimming pool, that's kind of a different thing to me. You knew that when you bought the yard, but there, when you could have thought about a different, whatever. It's a luxury rather than,
Really a hazard.
yeah, so.
It's not just because you're tired of the large leaves falling.
Yeah, we love
Or
this.
Tree removed and was not able to do so. Did fall into my house. Fortunately, we had kind of chopped part of the top off. I see this as a safety issue. If we have the discretion, I don't have an issue with waiving the fine completely. So,
Someone want
So find a home for one additional tree and waive the contribution.
there is, as shown in the picture, you got that red oak that has a large canopy to it. There's other trees in the point. So that one coming out, it'll be noticed initially, but it's not like it's gonna vacate the whole area because there's also stuff in the background of it, I'm sure. So
Possibly on the left side of the drive, a new tree to match the
they might even be able to get one in the.
The live oak is in the front right then?
Front right, yep.
My crepe myrtle is on the left
Oh,
to the driveway. There's no room to plant dual.
backyard is pretty shaded, pretty well treed.
Maybe fit one in there.
They got the shed back there. That corner would. Give it to you, but I mean, if you think the motion is one tree on site, maybe up the caliber branch of it to 4 inch or I don't know. Terry,
if we don't, if we have to do a fine, then I would say get a nominal amount. I see this different. Safety issue. She's attempting to protect her home and her neighbors. I make a motion to approve with conditions of staff other than the monetary fine and whatever discretion we have in reducing that. I would recommend reducing it to 0 with credit for the trees she's already planted.
Paula said one more tree, but why don't we do 1 4-inch tree?
That's my motion.
all right, so the motion, if I can rephrase it, would be approval required to plant 1 4-inch tree, and I think it's to remove the monetary fine. That's all we need, because at that point, we're saying remove the monetary fine, whatever was planted before is irrelevant. So-
Right, if you're not money.
So,
I don't like the word find. Fine.
The contribution fee.
The required.
it's not like she voluntarily would pay that if she wasn't told she had to. It's like, I think when they put that little parking ticket on my car, it's not, you can make a contribution to the street program. So, the motion is for approval, plant a 4-inch tree and removal of the mitigation contribution.
Yes.
Is there a second to Calvin's motion? Seconded by by Ms. Ravenel. All in favor, say aye in favor.
I favor.
In favor. Those opposed, say nay, not in favor. It's approved 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. Our next item is item B2, 26 Cumberland Street, application number 220504B2, TMS number 458-0503-087, 089 through 091, and 093. Excuse me, request a special exception from section 54-327 to allow the removal of one grand tree. Request a variance from section 54-327 to allow the removal of 2 protected trees zoned MU-2 and WH.
All right, trip downtown. This is the application submitted by Mr. Litton with Woodbury Engineering. This is his grounds for a variance and special exception. So a special exception, to be reminded, is a fact-finding function, and then the variance is hardship test. Assemblage of the parcels, multiple buildings on a couple of them, some surface parking lots presently. Zone MU-WH. Aerial. So working through the BAR process, these buildings are going to be, majority of them will be retained. I think there's some demolition involved in a couple of them, but body of the existing buildings will be maintained, and then new structures built upon the surface parking lots. So we got a volunteer mulberry in the center there, a tree form ligustrum in the palm on the west side of this surface parking lot. Survey. So you can kind of make up, this is all building. The parking will be in a garage under a podium, if you will. So we're getting a nice building in the corner of State and Cumberland. We'll use the driveway off of Cumberland and a driveway off of Lingard. As the majority of the existing buildings to the west. Pretty much zero lot line and basically volunteers. Photos. So the mulberry is a category 4, requiring a special exception in the 2 protected trees. The staff recommends approval. Again, this is based on the ordinance of just a quarter of the DBH inches removed. So plant 14 caliber inches of native trees. Project site, and this may be in the form of a contribution because there may not be plantable space. There are a couple courtyards that most likely will have the palms maintained, and provide a landscape plan for staff review and approval. Again, the hardship, well, the fact-finding function of the mulberry is a volunteer growing up against the wall. It's grew to a size to be considered grand, and then the shape of the lot and the proximity of the trees to property lines, squaring out buildings, working with the angles.
Thank you, Eric. The applicant is present.
Bill Eubanks, that's J&W, and also Trace here from Forsberg. Eric pretty much covered everything, except we did have an arborist report from Natural Directions, and it's a D grade tree. Y'all saw it. It's not that great. So it's a pretty simple request, and I just ask y'all to support Eric's recommendation.
President wants to support the application. Any of you 2 decide you want to go against it? We had no comment from the public, so we'll close the application to the public. It's open to the board for discussion or questions. I think I read someone in the buildings getting up to the sidewalks and being in line, and obviously that's probably requirement, which makes the location of one of those trees difficult, right? I don't see an issue and would support Eric's recommendations. No opposition to it.
Yeah, the mulberry also looks like it, there's a crack in the building right behind it. And it looks like it might have some cavity at the base. So that seems like it's pretty much lived its lifespan, though it does provide some habitat, but also is an invasive. So we probably shouldn't be in the habit of protecting some of those. And technically, the palm could be relocated elsewhere.
Motion to approve. the staff recommendation.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Jeff?
So is there any other discussion that's necessary, or are we ready to vote? All right, all in favor, aye in favor?
I favor.
Aye in favor, those opposed, nay, not in favor. All right, it's approved 6-0, thank you.
Should we consider ligustrum a tree?
That's what I would.
Yeah.
It's pretty form, it's really a large front, I guess.
You know, okay, so there are some, like the Unitarian Church, it's a good example where there's some like enormous podocarpus, right? And they are truly tree form at this point, and they're absolutely spectacular. You know, the japonicas are maybe aren't invasive to the same extent that the chinensis is, but you know, again, in your spare time, when you want to rewrite some ordinances.
Are they tearing down the back part of that historic building, Mark Shank? That what I saw on the plan?
In the front.
I think they're just keeping the front.
Yeah, the front of it is historic, so they're keeping that.
Yeah.
building.
That's the old Cumberland building, right?
Yep.
Correct.
Kyoto?
No, they actually downzoned, got it out, the accommodations, it's gonna be condos. Residential.
Were we not supposed to add 20 inches to that mitigation?
Anything less than $3,000 is
I missed the
unacceptable.
opportunity to.
All right. Well, that'll be good to have a little more residential in there, because I was saying to Joel on my way in that I'd driven down South Market Street for the first time in quite a long time, and it was just like there's absolutely nothing local on the entire run. No, they did a nice job with the market buildings. But boy, it's just vanilla.
I don't know, Bubba Gumps is sort of regional, right?
But you know, it was like the market, this little market, but you know,
Yeah.
that it's like, oh, this looks like it came out of Myrtle Beach last week, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyways. But I haven't been.
I'll hand this back off to you, Mr. Eric.